For generations, archaeologists relied on a predictable sequence to explain how human history unfolded. This diagram shows the traditional timeline of human progress. The sequence was logical. First, humans learned to farm. That produced food surpluses, which allowed people to stay in one place and build permanent settlements. Eventually, those settlements grew into massive cities, capable of constructing incredible monuments. Look at the distance on this chart between the starting point and the finish line. In this model, you cannot gather thousands of laborers to cut and haul stone unless you have a reliable agricultural system already in place to feed them. This sequence was treated as a chronological rule, a structural requirement for any society attempting to build on a grand scale. It suggested that complex religion and massive sacred temples were byproducts of an advanced society, rather than the force that created it. Then, a discovery on a remote hilltop in modern Turkey shattered that timeline. This is Göbekli Tepe, a network of massive stone circles and carved pillars sunk into a hilltop. The real shock is the site's age. If you dial the clock back past the Romans, past the Great Pyramids, and past the invention of farming itself, you arrive here, 12,000 years ago. 12,000 years ago, humans were nomadic hunter-gatherers. They lived in small, roaming groups with no permanent homes and no established crops. According to the old rules, they simply did not have the resources to organize a project of this scale. Gobekli Tepe is a historical contradiction. It exists in an era where the tools for building it supposedly hadn't been invented yet. To understand what was really happening on this hilltop, researchers had to look closely at what they couldn't find. Dig into a typical ancient settlement, and you will find the mess of daily life: house foundations, cooking hearths, trash pits, and streets. Gobekli Tepe has none of these. Instead of ordinary neighborhoods, the hilltop is filled with massive, deliberate ceremonial structures. This absence of domestic life led archaeologists to a conclusion that changes how we view early human movement. People didn't live here, they traveled here, likely converging from across the region for specific events. This indicates that Gobekli Tepe functions specifically as a destination, a shared landmark that drew scattered, mobile groups together for reasons beyond simple survival. The very layout of the site supports this. These thick circular walls act as physical boundaries, clearly separating the chaotic outer world from a protected inner space. Stepping inside that boundary draws your eyes immediately to the center, where two towering T-shaped pillars dominate the enclosure. Look closely at the sides of these stones. You can see long arms, hands with fingers wrapping around the front, and even a decorative belt. These represent more than just stone supports. They are massive, faceless statues. Researchers believe they are early depictions of ancestors or spiritual guardians, powerful beings watching over the gathering. A moment of wonder. Picture the scene 12,000 years ago. Nomadic groups, who rarely saw more than 20 people at a time, were standing in the shadow of these giants, sharing feasts and performing rituals. This architecture functioned as a social tool. It was designed specifically to inspire awe and unite disconnected groups under a single shared identity. This realization led archaeologist Klaus Schmidt to propose a concept that turns the traditional story of humanity upside down. He argued that first came the temple, and only then came the city. This new timeline suggests shared spiritual beliefs drove massive gatherings. Feeding thousands on a hilltop required more food than hunting provided. That necessity is the link. Sustaining these festivals forced humans to cultivate wild grasses, leading directly to agriculture. In this view, the desire to worship and gather was the primary engine that pulled humanity into a sedentary, civilized life. This theory is still actively debated. Some scholars argue the site served multiple roles, functioning as a hub for trade and political alliances alongside the spiritual rituals. Regardless of the exact mix of activities, the core truth remains. Early humans were organizing around complex ideas long before they built their first houses. But if this massive effort was driven by a need to worship, what were they actually worshiping? The only clues are carved directly into the stone. These pillars feature aggressive animals and cryptic symbols that have been silent for 12,000 years. These carvings are the most direct record we have of the stories and fears that occupied the minds of the builders. In our next episode, we will decode this ancient language and investigate the messages left behind. If you want to join us for that investigation, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to follow the journey on NAS100 Veda.